All right, we are back. And this is going to be a great segment. We are so fortunate to have in the studio with us Alan Nekhom. I'm going to bring him in right now. Everybody welcome him. Alan Nekhom. Welcome.
Hi, Jay. Thank you for having me on the show tonight.
It's great to have you here. Alan, we do every show, we start an interview off with Bernard Pivou's famous 10 questions. Of course, as we've already stated, we're a nonprofit, so instead of 10 questions, we can only afford 4.5. I'm going to pick up in the second half of the question from the first half of the show, so just you kind of swing with it the best you can. The question is, or rather the half question is, more desire taking dancing lessons with?
I'm going to go with President Obama. I've always wanted to learn how to tango, and I think he would be really great at it.
I bet so. That's a good question, a good answer there. Google or Bing?
Jay, I'm going to have to change your question a little bit and go with DuckDuckGo or SnowCow. SnowCow it is.
SnowCow for the win. All right. If you could change any one thing about your education, what would it be?
You know, I had some really unusual options when I went to college. I opted for electrical engineering, computer architecture, and moved into AI. But I had a shot at going to Juilliard School of Music. And I occasionally wonder what life would be like if I'd chosen to be a professional musician.
Oh, well, there you go. Certainly less employed. I don't know.
My wife said the same thing.
Okay, fourth question. What is your favorite smell?
Mango ice cream.
Mango ice cream. That's a good answer. Okay, that's interesting. And the last question. When you get to heaven, who would you most like to take tea with?
Jay, I'm an avid watcher of your show, and knowing that question was coming, I gave it a lot of thought. And at the risk of losing any aspect of humility, I want to take tea with the most interesting person there. My wife suggested you probably think that's you, don't you? But I'm going to go with, let me switch to beer. I'd like to have a beer with Albert Einstein.
A beer with Albert Einstein. All right. Good answer. Alan Nekhom, your resume reads like a Library of Congress section for technology. Samsung, ARC International, CTO at PRS, Incorporated, consulting at some of the world's largest firms, and now CTO of the Privacy Co-op. So my first question to you is, we've heard an awful lot about cloud in this TV show, in this episode. For the folks at home that are maybe not tech savvy, what does cloud mean anyway?
Cloud is a great idea, Jay. It's the idea of, instead of spending a bunch of money to buy a big room full of computers and air conditioning, I'm going to go to companies that have already made that investment. The Amazons, the Google, Cisco, IBM, Alibaba is real big in the Far East. And I'm going to say, guys, rent me your computer space so I don't have to make the investment. So in a nutshell, it's a way to get a tremendous amount of compute power and the scalability without throwing a lot of investment dollars into it.
Right. So if I'm hearing you correctly, it's a bit like I want to start up an airline, right? Well, you need an airport to run an airline. Do you go build your own airport? That would be nuts, right? With the overhead and the tower and the security and all that stuff. It's better to just use somebody else's airport they've already built and you focus on building an airline, right? Is that kind of what we're talking about here?
Yep, exactly right. That's a great description.
So if I'm a flower company, I don't want to worry about servers and firewalls and all that jazz. Let me just focus on the flowers and go into somebody's cloud and rent their servers and security and everything. I get it. Okay, so other than just saving time and money, though, right? We at the Privacy Co-op went into a cloud. Were there some other reasons other than just saving time and money for us to go into the cloud?
Absolutely, Jay. The Privacy Co-op provides a tremendous number of services for the world in general, free services. We provide a, if you will, a complaint engine that will allow people to file civil complaints about improper police profiling without having to present themselves with any perceived risk of going in person. The data is collected, it's kept confidential, it's provided to the authorities for them to make corrective actions. We work on programs that fight human trafficking. We focus on children's data rights and use these technologies to help prevent human trafficking of children, particularly the young children that are being taken into sex slavery. Pretty gruesome things here that we're fighting. We're working with some of our governmental, at the federal government level, representatives and with the CDC on COVID and pandemic tracing. So all of these services are there, they're provided for free, but we also provide services to our affiliates in the form of a CNS. This is a public commons. It's beginning to take root as DNS did across the entire internet. But this is going to provide the ability for corporate affiliates to be able to get instantaneous affirmative express consent. That means opt-ins, folks. And what that does is it enables them to use the data we want them to use legally and through licensing. And these services have to be worldwide. They have to be scalable. The cloud is the only practical way to do that.
You are so right. And on CNS, what you just spoke about, we have affiliates that have transactional needs for something like that. They need speed and they need geo distribution, which means available in multiple countries, so that they're, a server in Japan is not having to call a server in Bentonville, Arkansas, or vice versa. And we also have affiliates with needs for big data, which is a pretty big engine, and it requires a lot of horsepower. And I think it would bankrupt the privacy co-op if we try to go build, that kind of platform. It makes a lot more sense for us to certainly rent. So, there are a lot of clouds out there. There's a cloud by Amazon we've spoken about. There's one hosted by Microsoft, another one by Cisco, and certainly others. IBM is another one. So how are all of these clouds both the same, and how are they different?
So, Jay, all of the cloud providers give us the operating systems, the compute hardware, the storage, the connectivity, the things that are obvious. But the way they differ is they provide special services. For the co-op to use, for example, Microsoft Azure, if we're going to store data, we have to have hooks in our code that are specific to Azure and their data storage. Those hooks are going to be different whether you're with Microsoft, Cisco, Google, Amazon, IBM. Bottom line is there's a cost to moving. As the folks from Parler told us earlier, they're impacted and there's a cost. So what we're doing as the co-op is we're trying to essentially bring that cost down and to be ready for the unthinkable should it happen. So think about it this way, Jay. The cloud is the ice cream in that Dairy Queen dip cone. Now at Dairy Queen, it's a vanilla dip cone. At Frosty Queen, it's a chocolate dip cone. We want the chocolate or the vanilla, but we don't want to have custom code everywhere. So what we do is we take that ice cream cone and we dip it into that chocolate, making that nice little crunchy shell. What our tech team at the co-op has done is write in code that little crunchy chocolate shell that separates our core technology from the cloud specific. So for us to move to another cloud, we just write a new crunchy shell. It's very low cost and it makes us extremely portable. It also allows us to maintain a presence with multiple cloud providers ready to go. So should the unthinkable happen, we can flip a switch and cut over to a different cloud provider, or even use multiple providers at one time to provide better services for our worldwide corporate affiliates.
So talk about that crunchy shell just for a moment. We are in Amazon AWS, and they offer some really sweet services, and some of them are free or extremely low cost. Something like SMS messaging, which is texting. You need to send out a security code to somebody. I think everybody's familiar with this idea that today you go log in on a website and they go, okay, well, hold on, before we approve you, we're going to text you a code, and you got to go check your telephone and enter the code here, right? That costs money. And I know from experience setting this up at a big corporation, we used to pay a very large amount of money to get a custom phone number that's one of those 5-digit pins, and we were paying per transaction. Well, some of these cloud providers, they do it in such a massive number that for practically free, they'll offer you the SMS service, but that means you're changing your code to call their specific feature, right?
That's exactly it.
And if you move to a different cloud, they may or may not offer that function. And if they do, I doubt it's going to look exactly the same. So you're going to have some impact. So, we don't exactly have 1,000 developers waiting just to do a lot of changes for us, do we, at the Privacy Co-op?
We actually have a very significant team of volunteers. I don't know if your viewers are aware, but the bulk of the services provided by the co-op were generated by volunteers. I mean, we have software people, artificial intelligence, machine learning experts, but we also have attorneys and legal experts. We have folks that specialize in privacy, in fines, identity, worldwide legal matters. And these folks, the vast majority, are here because they feel that what the co-op does is something that the world needs.
Yeah, we're very fortunate for the passion of the folks that are working with us on our team, and by that we get some of the best experts in the world. So I'm appreciative of their help. Thank you very much for everybody that's watching that helps us out. But as we discussed in the show now, so everybody I think is starting to get this idea that a company would go into a cloud to save some money and some time. Then they plug into these specialized services to, because they're being offered at a discount, and they may have some very large needs to meet, right? So they're plugged into these custom services, and they may be more and more entrenched with that cloud if they trust them and things are going well. But, something happened in January, and we've talked about it on this episode. Amazon kicked Parler out of their cloud. Now, I'm not going to get into the wheres and whys and all that jazz. Just the fact that they got kicked out, how did that impact your thinking in this space?
Jay, this was very, very painful for us. And to be very candid, perhaps not the usual comment you hear on a serious talk show, but I soiled my diapers. It was frightening. I mean, contemplate, never mind why. Let's not speculate. Let's not put words in anybody's mouth. But let's say somebody trips over our plug. Let's say one of our members gets out on Twitter and posts something heinous and hateful. We run the risk that a cloud provider might decide to deplatform us like they did Parler. The problem is we've described the services we provide. Our members, our affiliates, and the general public are depending on these services to be available 24/7. We strive to get as close to 100% uptime as we can for them, and that required us to take a big step back, rethink, and come up with the concept of the dip cone chocolate shell.
Yeah. And, and we weren't the only ones, right? We talked to some of these other cloud providers through this process, and we were hearing anecdotal stories that we're not the only ones, that their sales sheet is chock full these days with other businesses that are, oh my gosh, what's going to happen if we cross Amazon? Are they going to pull the plug on us too, right? And so there's a lot of this activity going on. But you just didn't do the work. You also documented it. Is that right?
Well, that's correct. I mean, if you look at all the things we do as a co-op, we're about public service, make the world a better place. So we took the learning and the knowledge, and we put together a white paper basically a how-to guide, if you will, how to dump your cloud before your cloud dumps you for dummies.
I love it. I love it. And it's available. We have the link up. People can go to bit.ly/cloudkick and read your paper. It's a great, easy read, about 10 pages, and it goes through all the steps of the considerations you need to have in a multi-cloud solution potentially, right?
Jay, if our viewers today have some additional questions about that, is there a good email address at the co-op where they could reach out to ask their questions?
Absolutely. I'll give them your personal email address. No, I'm just joking. Info@privacy.coop. That's info@privacy.coop. You can send in a request there, and Alan will get those messages to you, those questions to you. But in the time that we have remaining here, if you could find maybe just one takeaway that you would hope the readers would find within your document, what would that be?
Jay, let me be honest. I mentioned our initial reaction, so my advice would be don't overreact. Don't dump the cloud. Don't go back to 100% on-premise computing. It doesn't make sense. Rather, consider a multi-cloud strategy and remember the dip cone. You can make it very easy. You can make it low cost, and you can diversify your vendor pool and protect your clients and your company.
Excellent advice, and what a great takeaway that would be. Alan, I hope all of the CTOs that are watching this program will go out and find your document, your white paper on this subject, and read it. It's a helpful article. And thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Jay, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.